Sure. My name's Mary Harwood. I teach grade 2 at an international school in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I've been working there for 4 years, and while working there, we've become an accredited IB PYP school. So we've done the whole process from start to finish, and we follow the Aero American International curriculum.
Wow. Okay, those are both two new things. I'm glad I had you do that because I didn't know that you
Okay.
guys became accredited during that time and do the arrow too. So that's wonderful. Okay, so
Yeah.
um, I'm a bit familiar with IB, and I know that they have a curriculum that really encapsulates like a 21st century learner. So
Yep.
I was wondering, have you felt that play out in school? How does your school like use that curriculum specifically in your class to approach the learners? Do you have some examples from your class?
Yeah, for sure. So instead, I guess the idea is that in the future, students will be able to, Google answers and facts. They don't need to have not so much knowledge because the knowledge is right at their fingertips, essentially, with technology. And so instead, we're teaching them more, how to sift through those facts or
Okay.
how those research skills and how to think independently and make connections between knowledge. In my class right now, we're doing endangered species. And so we're talking about connecting information. So yes, they already knew what an endangered species was. They knew maybe a little bit about like the red code list, so like critically endangered, vulnerable animals. And so we're really teaching them. I said, okay, you have one piece of knowledge and another piece of knowledge. That's great. Now we need to put it together. How are you going to apply this knowledge to other circumstances? So they're
Okay.
making connections.
What do you have for resources in your classroom for
Right.
the kids?
So, yeah, a lot of independent research we encourage. So, independent inquiry, finding out things that you're interested about. So, we do use computers, resources, people. We do a lot of field trips, so experiential learning.
Mm-hmm.
Resources, magazines, videos, the traditional
Okay.
kind of things, not just books. We don't have any textbooks. We don't have any textbooks. So
Okay.
any resources that are made by the teacher and kind of passed down through the other teachers, and otherwise the students really make the resources.
Okay.
Or find resources. We followed the Reggio Emilia approach beforehand, and so that really lent itself well to the school. And as the school's developed, we've opened up a new year level each year. So, the first year they were open, just went to year 1, and then the next year we went to year 2. So the school has really grown. It's quite challenging, I find, because when I've taught year 1, year 2, and year 3 at the school, so obviously inquiry, it's much more guided at the younger level. And so making a lot of your own resources is very time consuming.
Okay.
And sometimes what you imagine for your students and for your inquiry, your unit of inquiry, the resources are just not there. So for instance, with our unit right now, I want my students to make a timeline, choose an endangered animal and make a timeline. So when they became vulnerable or, moving on, or maybe they've become their classification has gone down or whatever, but like I just couldn't find the information. So you have to change, you want to make sure you're not giving them a challenge that can't be achieved. And so sometimes the resources just aren't there. So I do find it challenging.
For that?
Yeah, Reggio Emilia. It's an approach. It's an early years approach from Italy, and it was born out of like the post World War II.
Okay.
And so it's more like community based, and they basically created this curriculum for early years students up to age 6, so that they would have children that wouldn't repeat history, basically.
Okay.
And so it's a really cool,
Mm-hmm.
just Google it. And like, it's a really cool approach, like bringing all the senses and bringing the environment into your classroom and that sort of thing. With the PYP, like, there's a lot more structure to our day. We definitely before we didn't have much of a curriculum, and so the scope and sequence is the curriculum that goes along with the IB. And so in that, there's 4 phases, but you are teaching the PYP to students kindergarten to year 6. And so there's only 4 phases, and so they really go on the learning journey of each student. I found that a bit difficult because I was never really sure, in year 1, they need to tell time, but how far do we take this? Do they need to know it to the minute? Do they just need to know to the hour? And so our school has, just in the last 2 years, so we've gone from no curriculum to scope and sequence, and now we're following the arrow, which the arrow is much more specific. For instance, in year 2, you are telling time to the quarter or to the hour and the half hour. And now in year 3, you're telling time to the 5 minutes. So it's much more clear, how far to take your students, where they are on a standard. So meeting benchmarks. It's helpful for the parents as well. Parents want to know, are their students performing at grade level? Should they be concerned?
What about, how does your school involve international mindedness, like community and globalism? Is that something that's approached, especially at the international school? I'm assuming some of the kids are from different places. Like, how do you look at that? Is that built into the curriculum, or is it something that just comes naturally, or?
Well, it's built into the PYP curriculum through, we do like a learner profile. So within the learner profile and attitudes, there are different attributes that we all want our PYP students to be. So something like open-minded. We want them to be open-minded. We want them to be caring, communicators. So there's 10 attributes, learner profile attributes, and then there's attitudes as well. So like tolerance, respect. So when we're building each unit, and of course we're working on all these things all the time, but when we're building each unit, we look at the learner profile and we look at the attitudes and we decide, which ones lend itself really well to this unit. So for instance, in our year level this year, we had a cultural unit. And so the learner profile that lent itself really well was, being knowledgeable about other people's cultures, being open-minded. And then I think the attitudes that we talked about were tolerance, respect, curiosity, that sort of thing. And at our school, also it is very international. I have 12 students with 10 different nationalities. And so we really encourage mother tongue development, even though our instruction's all in English. Everything gets translated into Mandarin and Bahasa, because those are the 2 languages in Malaysia. And then whatever else beyond that. So if we have like a unit on extinction, spelling homework for the first week of our new unit will be to translate the keywords. So extinction, animal, cause, prevent, that sort of thing. And it really, for some students, it doesn't bother them. They're fully bilingual. Other students, it really helps them because like, I do know that word in my language. Sometimes we'll look it up. Sometimes I send it home for homework and ask the parents to discuss that with their students as well, because it's really important for parents to be involved as well, and to know what we're talking about, and more importantly for some students than others. But for the ESL students, definitely, and I really encourage them to find books in their home language about endangered animals or whatever they're studying, so that they're still, because they might go back to their country. They might not be international students forever, and if they've only learned about it in English, they might have missed that in their home language as well.
What's
I
your
would
overall
definitely
opinion?
recommend it to families who are looking for, a different way. I think this is the way that education is moving. So having students, we don't do worksheets. We definitely don't have any worksheets. We don't have anything that there's one answer that the whole class must get. And so really promoting independent thought, critical thinking, and that's something that I wasn't exposed to probably till the end of high school or university, even, where it's you don't have to believe exactly what the teacher is saying. We're all in this together. So if the students have a lot of knowledge that isn't necessarily facts, especially at our age. And so they tell me, okay, let's find out more about that. And so instead of me just saying, no, that's wrong, and, the universe is this, that they look it up and they make their own meaning. So my students, they have a lot of research skills and independent thinking. Our school's pretty small. It only has I don't know how many primary students, probably only 60 primary students. Okay. So we share laptops around the around the school.
Okay, that's
and
nice.
We have an ICT teacher that comes along and helps.
That can be related to IB or in general, especially you were there during the change. So I was wondering if you can tell me a bit about what kind of professional development you have been offered or been participating in, and how that affects your teaching.
Definitely. So in order to be a PYP school and to teach the PYP, you have to be accredited. So every teacher must take the Category 1, making the PYP happen. So school-wide, that was kind of the first step we took to authorization. And, professional development. And then every year since then, we, as a school, they've provided us with a PYP workshop. So that's just different categories and things like concept-based learning, assessment in a PYP classroom, that sort of thing. And so those are 3-day workshops.
Okay.
And the school provides those.
You have to go there, or it's online?
Workshops. So they come in and, they're paying a facilitator to come and visit with us.
Okay.
Otherwise, because our school is split between a Reggio school and a PYP school, so our school takes students from 18 months up until year 6. So we're still Reggio inspired for the early years. So it's good for us all to be aware of what's going on. And so we do a lot of Reggio workshops and have visiting guests who come and give recommendations for our classrooms or talk to us about ways that we can further teach in a Reggio inspired way.